Hey everybody, welcome to Dreamseed VR. I'm your host Seraphin, and today I figured we should do a little news update. Now, it's been a long time since I've done a news update, and the world has lost its shit. But in general, I felt like some of the themes of recent world events very much fall in line with some of the theory that we've covered in previous episodes of Dreamseed. In particular, some of the very first episodes of Dreamseed, which I recommend you go back and check out if you're unfamiliar with it at this point. We are going to talk today about systems dynamics and cybernetics, as well as cyber warfare. So earlier this week, I went down memory lane and I decided to watch Hackers, which is a very charming film from the 90s. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's amazing. Most of you are probably already familiar with it. And it's got Angelina Jolie and, I don't know, just like random goofballs and hotties. I can't remember their names right now. But the film revolves around a young hacker named Dade who went by the alias Zero Cool and committed a number of hacking-related crimes in his youth. And he is then put on probation until he's about 18 or so. And he gets sucked back into the underground hacking community. The reason why I feel like it's significant relating to current world events to touch back on this older, contemporary pseudo sci-fi from the 90s is because of the nature of the cybernetic warfare that is illustrated in the movie. So spoiler alerts, sorry guys. In the film, there is a arrogant, dweeby pencil neck cybersecurity douche who is playing both sides of the field by committing cyber espionage and eco-terrorism by launching this Da Vinci virus that is asking for a few million in ransom, otherwise it's going to crash several oil tankers that are throughout the world that belong to the company that he works for. But in actuality, the Da Vinci virus is really just a mask. It's just, a distraction from the real virus, which is some kind of worm that takes a few decimal points of every penny off of a lot of worldwide banking transactions. So it's financial fraud, right? And he's using this eco-terrorist bent on the surface to distract everybody from the real cyber espionage shit that's happening. So now that we've touched upon the crux of the fictional example, I feel like it's important to highlight how this is relating to the real world currently. Over the past several months, we've seen lots of unique circumstances that how do I say this? I'm not sounding like a fucking dork. You remember Suez Canal just a few months ago? Yeah, you remember that? How the whole world's supply chain was held up by essentially a traffic problem in the Suez Canal. How one big tanker thing, shipping container thing, blocked Suez Canal and no other traffic can go through until they, sorted that out. How does that just casually happen? Really, in the years that there has been a functional stream of commerce through this brilliantly engineered canal system, how is it that at this pivotal point in a slow train wreck economic collapse on a worldwide scale post Iris, let's just call it that, how is it that just happened earlier this year? How is it that professional, that captain was put in a position to make that colossal of a fuck up? Is this intentional? Is this just like an oops? Because I noticed that quite often that there seem to be lots of oops moments that really add up to a bigger picture. Now, you are more than welcome to call me a conspiracy theorist at this point. Go right the fuck ahead. Like, if you tuned into the last few episodes, like, I am an official tinfoil hat wearing bitch. Like, hi. And then fast forward to just like, what, a month ago, we had one of the largest cyber attacks on an oil pipeline on the East Coast. Just so happens to be after the new president decided to shut down the large oil pipeline. Really? Is it just a coincidence? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. And then you have another cyber attack, this time on one of the world's largest meat packing plants that affected their ability to organize and distribute the manufacturing processes of their product. Now, when you think about it, this meat packing plant provides protein for millions of people, and it's a really, really big deal. I hate to break it to all the bleeding heart vegetarians out there, but the majority of the human race is omnivorous. We eat meat, and protein is an essential part of a human diet. What do all of these things have to do with stuff that we cover here on the channel? It has to do with systems dynamics and the sciences of cybernetics. Now, if you have seen the first few episodes of this series in general, you'll know that cybernetics is not really so much to do with mechanical systems integrated into organic systems, the way science fiction portrays it with like cyborgs and androids or whatever, but it has a lot more to do with just system dynamics in general. The cycling of energy and the cycling of matter within systems. And initially, this was actually related to ecology, which goes back to our themes in Hackers, right? Where that cybernetic warfare was aimed directly at disrupting ecosystems with ecoterrorism by sinking those oil tankers. What we're seeing right now is a disruption of some of the world's largest energy systems amidst a supply chain breakdown like we've never seen before in general, causing an economic collapse. So if you essentially tell people that they can't go to work, that they can't go to school, that their jobs are not essential, and then you pay them off to stay home, by the time economies hypothetically are going to come back and schools are going to open and businesses are going to open, those businesses are no longer able to sustain themselves because they weren't able to pay the rent and the overhead on the business without income coming in. So, forgive me for wearing my hat, but that looks like an engineered collapse. That looks like people in power are intentionally gutting small businesses, non-essential businesses, and reallocating power to larger corporations who are able to maintain the overhead during a bubble like that. I know this is not a fun episode. I know that it's not what you want to hear. I know that you would much rather me talk about how hot Angelina Jolie looks in Hackers because chef's kiss, bitch is hot, okay? But I actually really care about your empowerment. I really care about you being able to get through this difficult point in human history. And I see a lot of troublesome times ahead. And I want you to understand the mechanism of this breakdown, because then you can go ahead and subvert it, right? So right now, a lot of large, complex systems of convenience that rely on many smaller moving parts and long chains of distribution are being broken down on a fundamental level. This is the same kind of dynamic that happens when you break down an ecosystem by removing a predator or by introducing an unfamiliar vector or an invasive species or something like that. If you take out the workers, you're going to have a lack of supply, right? And that lack of supply is going to dry up that market, and then that market's no longer going to be able to sustain itself. So when you have this meatpacking plant thing happen, what are they going to do? They're going to try to push some other solution on you, and they're going to make it look like a necessity. And they're going to do this because there was no other way to coerce you into making that change that benefits them. So what if I told you that none of these things are coincidence? What if I told you that in the past 6 months that we have seen 3 of the most disruptive events in world commerce over the past several decades, notwithstanding possibly a world war scale event? What if I told you that? We're currently looking at what the nature of World War III is. It's not fought with dudes on beaches of Normandy, and it's not fought in the, mountains and hills of Korea, and it's not on the Russian front. It's in bits and data, and it's the same tactics you've seen for every war. You disrupt supply lines. You hit them with energy. You hit them in the pantry, right? You take out their fuel and you take out their food. The way to do this in a modern era that has that psychological stealth element of surprise that leaves people in a position to not have an immediate reaction is to make it look like an accident and to do it with cyber warfare. So what are the things that you can do right now to protect yourself and the people you care about from the next onslaught of this era of warfare? Well, to be quite honest, inflation is really intense right now. It's about to crash the market, according to many people. The only way to really secure yourself in a world where the large systems are failing everybody is to become more self-efficient. And I know that that's not a popular thing to say. Everybody wants to live in the future. Everybody loves convenience. They really want to have the freedom to pursue their passions and leisure activities. But unfortunately, that's being used as the carrot and the yoke for people to acquiesce their real power and their sovereignty to these systems. These larger systems are transforming in a way that are closing in the walls on people. Do you really want to own nothing and eat bugs in the future? Because that's what the Great Reset wants. It's not a conspiracy theory. You can go look it all up yourself. They're completely transparent about what they're doing in their plans. It's not a conspiracy theory. And these are, without a doubt, the first steps along that path. So what am I suggesting you do? I would get local. I would familiarize yourself with the energy systems in your local life, whether that's the regional biodiversity that you have. If you want to develop a green thumb, that's a great start. If you want to, organize with your neighbors and find out what the, local laws are regarding having like chickens or rabbits or whatever. Pro tip about rabbits, you're going to need some other fat source because rabbits alone are too lean to sustain yourself on. But yeah, I also recommend things like getting a food dehydrator and buying overstock food in bulk for those of you who have chains like the grocery outlet near you locally. That's a place where you can find a lot of overstock food that's more reasonably priced. It's a way that you can stock up and, preserve your food. Canning is a little bit more intense of a process, and it takes a little bit of learning curve to understand how to do it properly. But dehydrators aren't terribly expensive. You can probably find a nice one for around 170 or so online. That way you can dry fruit and meat and other things. There's a lot of information on the internet of people who have found really interesting recipes and ways to preserve food. I would do that. I would also make a point to get good security for you and the people you care about, because when these food shortages start to happen, and they already are starting to happen, they're only being reported on a local level, unfortunately. All of the mainstream news are not reporting on it. Make sure that you can defend yourself. Make sure you can defend your home, however that looks like for you. Don't virtue signal and say, like, oh, well, I'm nonviolent. Well, guess what? Other people are violent. And when they're going hungry and they haven't made a contingency plan for themselves, they will come to monopolize your contingency plan. So before this shit goes Mad Max, make a plan for yourself. If you need to relocate to a place that's more free or closer to your friends and family, I would recommend doing that as well, because to be a lone wolf is not the way to go. Banding together with your community is really going to exponentially raise your chances of getting through this rough time intact. So I know that this was like not the episode you wanted, but to be quite honest, I think it's the episode a lot of people needed. And I would feel really guilty if I didn't share the insights that I've been having lately about these different system collapses. And I would also be stupid to deny how incredibly cyberpunk it is, and how much it relates to a lot of the theories and concepts that I've covered in previous episodes. So, like, the most punk thing you can do right now is start a garden. The most punk thing you can do right now is to learn how to slaughter a chicken. Like, who would have thought the cyberpunk is chickens? So, learn about nutritional science, learn about what your local ecosystem can sustain, learn about, how much sunlight your area gets and what's needed to do like small greenhouse stuff, or like team up with your neighbors, talk to your landlord, see if you can get a little garden going. If you're in a colder climate, see if you can get like a tiny greenhouse going. Anything helps. And the thing is that like if you specialize in one or two things, like contact your neighbors and create alliances with them, and you can trade. So even just 3 generations ago, my family was farming in California, and they used to trade with all of their neighbors. Someone would have ducks, someone would have canned fruit and stuff like that. Someone else would have other kinds of meat and eggs, and they would all trade. And that way everybody would be cycling nutrients and having adequate food for everybody, like broad enough spectrum nutrition. But not any one person had to be growing all of the different varieties and stuff, right? And that also falls into the energy dynamic systems that cybernetics is basically the science of, those system dynamics. The baddies in hackers are pretty much the New World Order. And I find it really adorable how on the nose that narrative was back then, and how it's just like really come to fruition now. It doesn't really get more obvious than that. It doesn't really get more predictive programming than that. There's a funny little speech in the film that the evil pencil neck cybersecurity hacker guy gives about the New World Order, and about how the little people are cattle, and how the world is really run by hackers. And it was just so fortuitous. So what is the solution when combating this New World Order and combating this Great Reset? Well, it looks like Ecopunk. Looks like solarpunk. It looks like taking those systems that we do have direct control of our communities, our relationship to the earth, and re-engineering it in a way that subverts their control. And it's like instead of their great reset, it's like our reboot, right? And having a relationship with nature that's direct. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean giving up your life and your hobbies and this and that. Just nerd out, get off grid, challenge yourself, live within that core of hope that you have. Don't rely on Big Brother to give you security, because there is no security in this world. You have to be self-sufficient. You have to protect yourself. No one's coming to save us. You've got to do it. Don't be afraid. Have faith that all of the strength of your ancestors have brought you to this point in history, and that you are more than capable of taking care of yourself and the people that you love and care about. And whenever you feel disillusioned, reach out to people. Have some kind of ritual that reminds yourself of that power. Spend time in nature. Spend time being present in your body. Like go for a run. Hang out with animals. Hang out with your dogs or cats or parrots or whomever. Know that you can and will be okay if you take control of your life. Everybody has been acquiescing their power to these systems for decades, maybe even millennia. But that's got to change, otherwise they're going to completely strip us of everything that we have left. No more obvious than right at this moment that we're at some kind of precipice, unless we take a hold of the pen and the quill and write our own story, that someone else is going to write it for us. Those of you who watched other content on this channel, you know that I am very much involved in the conceptual thesis of metafiction, and that I feel as though metafiction is a way of understanding that we write our own lives, that you are the word on the page of this world, and that through your actions, your story is written. So get out there and write a better story. Don't let these people write the story for us. And this is just one expression of how I choose to do that. But I'm inviting you to do the same in your own way that feels right for you. And I believe in you. I do. Just by pure virtue of you being here, sharing this space with me, you are a unique perspective that also has a lot to contribute to where we go. So I want to thank you for your attention span, like always. I love you guys. I will be doing more stuff on brain-computer interfaces sometime soon. I've got some really great material for that. But I felt like this was more pertinent to what's going on in the world. So if I can give you any closing advice, is don't be afraid. That is what they want. They want you to feel helpless. They want you to be afraid. They want you to be demoralized. And if you let them demoralize you, then the battle's already halfway lost. After an entire year of the tragedy that we've gone through on multiple fronts, this is just another blow, right? But it's time to really let go of the superfluous bullshit that we've been trying to hold on to, and to really reevaluate what matters and what we want to preserve, because they're coming for that too. So thank you again. If you want to support what I do, you know where to go. Check out patreon.com/Seraphin. You can check out our website, dreamseedvr.com. And I am also excited to be releasing the first few interviews of the long-awaited interview series. Next week, we're going to be releasing an interview with Jake Corbin, who is an amazing visionary artist, as well as a magician and a VR enthusiast. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, I have, gosh, like 4 or 5 other fabulous interviews lined up after him as well. So stay tuned. And as always, I love you guys. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.